There are places on this earth that defy human scale, vast, silent, and profoundly indifferent. This is the Alaskan interior. And on November 3rd, a date that would forever cleave a family's life into before and after, this wilderness turned its gaze on one man. That morning, Harold Jenkins, a 48-year-old accountant from Seattle, a man whose world was built on the solid ground of spreadsheets, quarterly reports, and predictable outcomes, filed a routine flight plan. He was heading to a client meeting in Juneau. In his briefcase, financial statements. In his mind, the comfortable logic of debits and credits. But the wilderness operates on a different ledger, one of sudden storms, hidden downdrafts, and razor-thin margins for error. And on that day, under a deceptively calm sky, it called in his account. The first sign that the equation had changed was silence. When Harold failed to check in, a clock started ticking. A clock measured not just in hours, but in body heat, in remaining daylight, in the freezing point of fuel. The official machinery lurched into motion, but Alaska mocks human effort. The designated search area ballooned to cover thousands of square miles, a sprawling canvas of frozen rivers, dense thickets, and peaks that tear at the clouds. For days, search planes traced and retraced the grid, their pilots' eyes straining against the blinding white. They scanned for a flash of color, for a shape that wasn't a rock or a shadow. They found nothing. No mayday call, no emergency locator transmitter signal, no scattered metal gleaming in the sun. With each passing sunset, the official prognosis hardened. Hope, like the fuel in those search planes, was a finite resource, and it was burning perilously low. The case was being prepared for its grim final column, presumed fatal. The recovery of remains, not rescue, was becoming the unspoken goal. But in the operations room, amidst the rolled-up maps and cooling coffee, one person refused to close the file. Lieutenant Mara Vance, a search coordinator with 15 years of reading this landscape's cruel handwriting, fell to dissonance. The data wasn't adding up. She lay awake seeing the wind models in her mind, emphatic, leaning in. The prevailing winds that day came from the north, she'd insist. If the plane lost power here, it wouldn't have fallen straight down. It would have been a leaf on the wind, pushed here. Her finger would tap a blank spot on the map, a valley slightly off the main search grid. It was a hunch, a statistical outlier, a whisper of intuition against the roaring consensus of logic, and she fought for it.
Vance's redirected hunch, a pilot caught a glint, not of metal, but of a broken shadow, a geometric tear in the seamless white tapestry. The wreckage of Harold's Cessna 172, partially buried, wings snapped like twigs against the mountainside. A wave of solemn relief washed over the team. They had found it. But as their ski plane touched down a quarter-mile away, that relief curdled into a deeper, more unsettling tension. The silence was absolute. They approached the crumpled aircraft, their boots crunching in the snow, braced for a scene of tragedy. The door was partially opened. The cockpit was empty. Harold Jenkins was not there. But this was not a tomb. It was a life raft. Evidence of a fierce, calculated will to live was everywhere. Snow had been carefully melted in a repurposed oil bottle. Food ration wrappers were neatly folded, not torn. The plane's torn seat cushions and a section of fuselage had been crafted into a lean-to, a pathetic yet brilliant shield against the killing wind. He had survived the impact. He had been here, thinking, planning, living. And then, in the frozen cockpit, tucked not in a pocket, but placed deliberately on the pilot's seat, they found his ledger. But the columns weren't for dollars and cents. They were a chilling log of survival. Time, core temperature estimated, calories consumed, snow melted in ounces. It was the meticulous mind of an accountant applied to the raw calculus of staying alive. The final entry, written with a steady hand, read, Day 4, morning, clear sky, signal mirror constructed, rations depleted, moving to higher ground for visibility, river audible to the south. The discovery turned the entire search on its head. Harold Jenkins hadn't died. He had survived the crash. He had taken stock, marshaled his resources, and executed a plan. He had walked away from this wreckage, aiming for a point of hope. So, if he walked away, where on God's earth did he go? Now, a search for a survivor, the team followed the only clue, his stated intent, uphill, towards the sound of the river. And there, in a patch of wind-scoured ice, they found them, a single set of footprints, pressing purposefully toward the ridge. The searchers' hearts must have leapt. They followed the trail to its end, which wasn't an end at all. It was a cliff edge, overlooking a violent, ice-choked river churning 50 feet below. The footprints simply stopped at the precipice. Did he slip? Did he jump to reach the water? A frantic search of the riverbanks from miles downstream yielded nothing, no body, no shred of clothing. He had vanished a second time. The official conclusion was pragmatic, lost to the river, presumed deceased. But nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the human mind. Without a body, theories rushed in to fill the void. Pause. Tone shifts. Was Harold Jenkins just a victim? Or did the man who calculated his survival down to the ounce see a final, radical opportunity? Did the meticulous accountant, perhaps facing a hidden ledger of personal or financial ruin back home, perceive the crash not as an end, but a terrifyingly perfect escape hatch, a chance to zero out the old life and walk into the wild, anonymous and reborn? Lower, more speculative. Or perhaps, in those 4 days of silence and struggle, something in him changed. Perhaps reaching the river, hearing the rush of free-flowing water after the crushing silence of the snow, presented not an obstacle, but a path, a way out and a way forward, away from everything he had known. The case remains open, a slow, deliberate delivery, a file in a drawer labeled unresolved. It is a cold case in the truest, most literal sense. Harold Jenkins applied the full force of his orderly mind to the chaos of survival, and for 4 days he balanced the equation. But his final calculation, the one that sums to his ultimate fate, is a piece of arithmetic the wilderness has locked away. The snow keeps its secrets, the river carries them to the sea, and all that remains is the echo of a question on the wind and the enduring mystery of the man who walked away from the wreckage.